We're recording now. I was making up for my for my time absent from the
Gotcha,
screen.
gotcha. I'm sorry, but I'm also having dinner because it's late over here.
Yeah, that's kind of part of what I was doing, was trying to research something I could buy and have delivered, and then also my cousins are making a bunch of money off of cryptocurrency, and I was trying to find my way in.
Gotcha. I can't. Cryptocurrency is something I never learned about in school, in my economics classes, but I find it interesting. Like non-governmental monetary systems are of interest of me.
Yeah.
I'm having the world's most controversial pizza. Ham and pineapple.
Pineapple, yeah.
Man, I've seen friendships end over pineapple discussions.
It's the pineapple that gets people.
That's fine. I mean, it's not my favorite, but it's okay.
Yeah. Yeah, I guess people are a little unsure about mixing savory and sweet.
Mm-hmm.
But there's a lot of stuff like that. There's like pineapple fried rice and that. Pineapple's kind of popular.
I remember that the king of, or the prime minister of Belgium had to apologize basically to his people because he said that pineapple is the type of thing that he throws people in jail for on pizzas.
He's the prime minister of what, England?
Belgium, I think, was the goal. It was something like ridiculously over the top, and he had to apologize. It was just funny.
That's pretty funny. That is something else to apologize for. Well, I think I'm actually just going to work with what I got and throw something in the microwave real quick.
No worries. I'll be here.
Okay, you're not going to be able to let people in.
Just hurry back. That's all.
Okay.
No worries.
Okay.
Me in.
Yeah.
No.
I stepped away for it a sec. Raul was the first one in, as always, and then we talked for like 15, 20 seconds, and then I stepped away for a sec.
Yeah. Like, what's going on here?
You gotta be quick. You gotta be quick, like Raul, man.
I
don't know how quick I am. I think Ish is much quicker than I am.
Raul, you're the first one on every single time.
I have a thing about being early.
You're like fingers on the trigger, like ready. You're like boom. I don't know if you have like a duck hunt style.
Oh, a light gun? Those are fun.
Duck hunt, huh? That's what we're doing?
Uh-huh. Oh, man, I remember that day.
It's just laughing at us. It's just laughing at us, Flav.
I remember that day I got my Nintendo. That was a beautiful day.
It was.
I don't know if I'm remembering it right. For some reason, I'm remembering being in, like, my pajamas, but I don't know if that's true or not. I think I'm also remembering being in a one-piece pajamas, which doesn't sound true. I don't think I was that old.
It was a Mario Brothers Duck Hunt combination because nobody was going to buy Duck Hunt. Nobody was just going to go buy that game, Duck Hunt. Yeah, it was dope because it was on the Mario Brothers cartridge.
Yeah, it was dope as an extra. Yeah, no one was going to buy it on itself.
I think it's the only game that used that gun, right?
Yeah, that's a good question. Did any other game use that gun?
Yeah, a few, but very few.
Because why didn't they Why didn't they have like shooters? I guess
because
back
Duck
then
Hunt didn't get over.
What's that?
Duck Hunt didn't get over.
I'm saying, why didn't they have like shooters though?
Like there wasn't a Nintendo powered Duck Hunt special. It just didn't happen.
I remember Nintendo Power Ish. You old bastard.
Oh yeah, Nintendo Power.
Nintendo Power was the bomb back in the day.
Yeah. Yes, it was Nintendo Power.
And the kid that got it in the mail because of their parents was like the coolest kid in the neighborhood.
Yeah. Everybody was trying to read that copy of Nintendo Power.
Yeah.
Nintendo Power.
I remember when you first. I haven't thought about that in years.
Yeah, those are worth a pretty penny.
I know. It's the people grew up and got good jobs and now they want it all back.
Yeah, they want the 80s back.
Yeah. Of course, I don't want the 80s back because there's some horrific shit in the 80s I'd rather not think about.
You know, we were talking about that some months back about how, while as great as the 80s was, because, you know, it was a great era.
Sure.
So many things were acceptable in the 80s that just would be canceled today.
Oh, like, yeah.
So many things. Like, it was just okay to, like, you remember the movie Soul Man?
Oh, my God, do I ever. I was like, how embarrassing.
Could never come out today.
No, maybe thankfully. But there was a line from Soul Man which I thought was funny. Do you remember the girl who was obsessed with him while he was wearing the makeup? And she kept saying this line, I don't see black or white, I see islands of gray. And then at the end, you find out she's dating a Native American, and she goes, I don't see white or red, I see pink. Pretty hilarious. I remember that pretty particularly.
Yeah, that movie, man. I mean, it's still available. You can still watch it. It hasn't been canceled or anything. Me and Mike discovered that, you know, you could actually like pay like $3 on YouTube and watch it.
Jeez.
But yeah, we had a conversation about it on the show very early on about Soul Man. And
now, do you guys have you guys seen the movie Song of the South by Disney?
I haven't.
Okay, because I want to ask your opinions of it as black men, what you guys thought of Song of the South. Because the problem for me is that I love Louis Armstrong's voice. And it had such beautiful music in it that I don't want to lose that music. But it's basically been canceled because it's been said as racist. I don't even know if it's racist. I can't even remember it all that well. I just remember I love the music so much.
Oh, are you talking about the old Disney movie?
Yes. It's very old. It's from the 60s or 50s or something like that.
Yeah, I heard there were a few Disney movies that Disney canceled because of what was acceptable at a certain time.
Right. And that's the number one offender apparently. But like I said, I think the music is beautiful, and losing the Louis Armstrong's voice on an entire soundtrack, I think is criminal.
I have to watch it.
Although it may be as racist and terrible as people say. I don't really remember the movie that well. I just remember enjoying the music and being a little upset I would never be able to see it again.
Isn't like Zippity Doodah in there?
Yeah, Zippity Doodah is one of them.
Yeah, I know people were talking about that. You know, it's interesting because a lot of things were, you know, I have a lot of old like periodicals and, you know, illustrated periodicals where, you know, a friend of mine had given them to me, and they're old. We're talking like 20s, 30s stuff, right?
Okay.
A friend of mine had given them to me, and, you know, there's so like, I can't tell you how many panels in there are just straight up racist.
Like Sambo type stuff?
Yeah, and
Lord.
It's because, you know, and the friend who gave it to me, we had, you know, so several deep discussions about it, but it was like, well, was the person who wrote this racist, or were they just living in a world where racism was acceptable?
Probably
not
the
making an
latter.
excuse or anything.
Yeah,
But
yeah,
you
yeah.
understand what I'm
Probably the
saying? It was
latter.
just like, you know, when you put on a creative hat and you write and you write about the world around you, like
Right.
that's the world around you.
Well, there's a writer in particular that I love that is a complete racist misogynist. His name was H.P. Lovecraft, and he
Oh
does
yeah,
the stuff to
Joey talks
Cthulhu.
about him all the time.
He's real cool. I mean, the ideas that he was putting out, nobody was putting out at the time.
The
However,
Cthulhu mythos.
yes. However, it's interesting because the modern Cthulhu writers have totally turned it on its head, and like most of the heroes are people of color now, which is interesting. It's kind of a poke at the racism. The because you can still buy the books in Barnes and Nobles, and they have terrible names in there. I mean, things I would never repeat, and especially not if I cared about my feelings towards my family. You know what I mean?
Right. You know, it's interesting because it's my understanding that on some level, Conan owes his origins to the Cthulhu mythos.
Yes, he does. They were friends actually.
Yep.
Robert Howard, that's his name, and Robert Howard killed himself because he was gay in that era where you couldn't be gay and be famous.
Mm.
And here he was writing about the ultimate man, you know, the man's man, the man who went into the thing, killed the evil wizard, slept with the girl, and rode off into the sunset with a bag of gold. You know what I mean? And
Yeah.
he had to kill himself because the attention of being exposed for being homosexual at the time was just, it was a death sentence as well.
It's just interesting that, you know, when you follow, you know, a thing all the way to its origin, right? Like,
Oh,
if you look at
absolutely.
if you look at like the impact that, you know, we were talking about the 80s, that, you know, He-Man and the Masters of the Universe had on the 80s. And, you know, He-Man exists specifically because Conan existed.
Mm-hmm.
You know, that's the reason why they created He-Man. As a matter of fact, the original prototype looked like a Conan, you know, like a Conan toy would look like. And that's the reason why they changed his hair blonde and what have you, because copyright infringement. And then Conan, you know, owes his origin to the Cthulhu mythos. And it's like, you know, you can see, like, you know, what who knew, you know, right? Did H.P. Lovecraft ever think that, you know, one day people would be getting ready for like a major Netflix show for, you know, revitalizing the Masters of the Universe with Kevin Smith? And, you know, not even that he ever conceived He-Man, because he didn't, but he created the Cthulhu missiles, which inspired Conan, which then inspired He-Man, which, you know what I mean?
And
It's just kind of.
Did you say there's a Netflix show coming about
for He-Man? Yeah.
There are two Netflix shows coming.
With, you said Kevin Smith is involved?
Yes.
Yeah.
What did you say, Raul?
Did you guys also see the Transformers anime? What they call anime? It wasn't really anime. It was fantastic. It was real
CGI.
There's also a new series that's sort of based on the Cthulhu mythos, I think, written by Jordan Peele, called Lovecraft Country, that's coming out on HBO, I think, in like a week, actually.
Oh, in like a week?
Yeah, and I'm excited to see that.
Yeah.
And the main characters are black.
Yeah.
If I remember correctly.
That's
what I was telling Ish
Lovecraft
about.
Lovecraft Country.
That the modern Lovecraft creators have turned the racism on its head.
Yeah.
Of the original writer.
Yeah, it's really brilliant the way they've done that. Like, I've heard people talk about this one book in particular, the Ballad of Black Tom, I think it's called, which is
Ballad.
Oh, you've read that, Ish?
No. You said Ballad. I think you meant Ballad.
Ballad, yeah. I'm tired, but yeah, the Ballad of Black Tom, which is actually like told through the perspective of a black character, but it's a spin-off of the horror at Red Hook, which was like Lovecraft's most blatantly racist story. Like, in most of his stories, the racism is just sort of, you know, lurking in the background, but in that one, it's very, very, very blatant. And I think it's really interesting the way, you know, people that Lovecraft himself would have hated have taken his works and made it better. And one of the great things about that, it sort of speaks to another issue, which is how much copyright can really limit creativity, because all of Lovecraft's works are in the public domain, and I believe they may always have been, and that's why a lot of other writers have always been able to just basically do whatever with his characters and just take whatever creative license they want and his creations.
It's interesting how you said the racism is lurking in the background. It reminds me of how the racism is, going to be given, like, it's going to have a shape and form, to it. It's going to be, what's the word for it when you kind of like animate a non-animated thing?
Like overt versus covert, I guess.
Well, if it was an animal, it would be anthropomorphized, right? Making an animal, giving an animal human characteristics, but in this case, giving something like racism, like this human characteristic where it's like, a bad guy lurking in the background.
Absolutely, yeah. And I also it also fits for Lovecraft, because lurking has a very horror-esque kind of quality to it. And I was doing that unconsciously, but since you mentioned that, I sort of noticed it.
Mm-hmm.
So,
I think that's what Peele does. Yeah.
With this, you had mentioned, you had asked about with this He-Man series that's coming out on Netflix.
Yes.
There are two. The one is kind of it's not really getting a lot of shine. So Kevin Smith was contracted to produce or direct one, to kind of be the showrunner of one. They both were announced at the same time, but the one that Kevin Smith, you only hear about one, even though they both were announced. And the reason why is because Kevin Smith assembled like probably the greatest cast put together for a cartoon television series.
Oh, it's a cartoon. It's a cartoon series.
But the cast is just ridiculous. Like, you got Mark Hamill, you got
wow,
you got the original Skeletor. Like, when I tell you the voice of the original Skeletor is in there, like, you got I had posted it on Comic Sense maybe a year back. There's like 19 big name people involved with this animation that are doing voices on some level, and they're big.
Okay.
Like, they're, you know what I mean? So it's,
And this is coming how soon? How soon?
Well, because of COVID, we don't know.
Oh, we don't know. Okay.
But there was a meme going around with, it wasn't really, not really a meme, but I guess a meme of, it had every character and every person who was voicing that character.
Okay.
And it was, it went around. It was a pretty popular meme because it's an all-star cast. There probably isn't, for an anime, there probably isn't a greater, a better cast. Like, this is probably the best one.
Wow.
Yeah, it was a big deal.
And this is a one-off? This is a one movie?
No, it's a television series.
Oh, okay.
I'm going to my Google machine as we speak.
And do we know how many episodes, or?
We don't have any more information. I mean, okay. I would imagine, 10 to 13.
Mm-hmm. Not the crazy amount we used to get when we were little, where what would it come on every day or something, or how often did it come on when we were little? Yeah. Wouldn't that be ridiculous? Like, if they went to that format, it'd be hard to get quality if it were an everyday affair.
It's called Masters of the Universe Revelation.
Oh.
And the cast is, I'm going to tell you in a second, because it's crazy. You probably don't know these. I mean, most of these people, if you saw them, you would know who they are. Mm-hmm. But you probably don't know. You got Mark Hamill as Skeletor. Mm-hmm. So Netflix has revealed the Masters of the Universe Revelation voice cast, and it's powerful. You might even say it's the most powerful voice cast in the universe. Check it out. Mark Hamill as Skeletor, Lena Headey as Evelyn. That's big right there. Chris Wood as Prince Adam, Sarah Michelle Gellar as Tila, Liam Cunningham as Man-at-Arms. Stephen Root as Cringer. Diedrich Botter as King Randor and Trapjaw. Griffin Newman as Orko. Tiffany Smith as Andra. Henry Rollins as Triclops. Alan Oppenheimer as Mossman. Susan Eisenberg as Sorceress. Alicia Silverstone as Queen Marlena. Justin Long as Roboto. Jason Mewes as Stinkor. Phil Lamar as Hero. Tony Todd as Scareglow. Cree Summer as Priestess. Kevin Michael Richardson as Beastman. Kevin Conroy as Merman. And Harley Quinn Smith as Alina.
It's always, I want to interject for a second because it's always, I mean, that's an incredible all-star cast, but it's always funny to me when I hear people mention Griffin Newman now, or like when I first saw him starring on Ant-Man, because when I was in college, I actually wrote an article on him and I wrote a review. I profiled him and I wrote a combined profile / review of his off Broadway show that he was doing at that point. And like probably before anyone knew him, I met him in a diner in the city one day and just did an interview and then saw his show. And it was, it's just kind of funny now to realize he's a big star. And I may have been the first journalist anywhere to actually write about him.
That's actually cool.
Yeah. He's a nice guy. Cool.
Yeah, that's actually really cool. You wrote about him in college?
Yeah. He was this girl I was sort of dating at the time, just I guess was a friend of his and told me about him and sort of suggested that I do this profile on him, which I did. I mean, I don't think he went to my school at the time, but yeah, I got to interview him and then just followed his early career for a bit. Like first I saw that reviewed that off-Broadway show he was doing, and then about a year later at the Tribeca Film Festival, I saw another movie that he was starring in called, I think it was called Assassination of a High School President, and it had him as like a high school journalist who wrote an expose on like I forget, I think it was like some corruption with them selling tainted food in the cafeteria, and his arch nemesis was the principal played by Bruce Willis, and that was a really good movie.
I'm not sure I'm familiar with it. What was it called?
Assassination of a High School President, I believe. It might be tough to find now because I don't know if it was ever released on streaming or to Blu-ray or DVD or anything. I just saw it at a film festival at like in 2010, 2011.
Like an indie film?
Yeah. At the Tribeca Film Festival, which was always a fun film festival. Did you guys ever go to that?
I haven't.
I don't know, but I had a friend who was a writer and who was heavily involved in that back in circa 2006, 2007.
That's cool. Yeah. I love film festivals.
Tribeca, is that in Canada?
No, that's in
New York City.
Yeah, just in the area around Lower Manhattan. It was actually started after 9/11 to try to revitalize the area.
Oh, I didn't realize that.
Yeah, the first one was in 2002, I think.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Is that the one De Niro is associated with or no?
I believe so, yeah. I think he may have been one of the ones to help organize it initially.
Yeah, I've got fond memories of my man Brian, the guy that I mentioned the other day, ish, as you and KD so funnily made fun of the way I mentioned him as the guy that pretended to be the lawyer to help out our friends in Flatbush, where Vash lived, and to get him out of trouble when the cops were messing with him.
He exercised his privilege.
Yes. Yeah.
Well, yep. I mean, he kind of utilized his privilege in a shady way to work to the benefit of.
Hey, that's perfect. They lie to us all the time, so. And technically, if that friend had given him $1 and he had decided he wanted to represent him, I guess technically he could. Well, I guess he doesn't have a license, but.
So wait a minute. He just kind of stepped up and was like, "I'm a lawyer," and started talking.
So one of the other dudes, this dude named Ranks, said, I think looked at him and said, "That's my lawyer." And then, Brian kind of looked at the cop and nodded, and the cop was like, looked at him and like, it's this like white guy in the middle of Flatbush, where there's no one that looks like him. And so, yeah, I think the cop believed it. So it wasn't Brian that said he was a lawyer. He just played along when Ranks, said that he was the lawyer.
I just read a social media status, and I'm sitting here scratching my head. Like, I don't know, maybe it's just me, or could a person not make, like, this person is making no sense. Like, not only is this person making no sense, I don't know, maybe it's just me. Like, I don't think I've read a more contradictory post, like a post that refutes itself than this one in a long time. Like,
read it out to us.
Trying to make a point, but refuting their own point in the process of making a point. I'm going to read you the status update. I just want to, maybe it's just me. Maybe I'm missing something here. So it says, still think Americans will tune in or pay for this trivial crap? Keep making your political statements with BLM. Despite the COVID lockdown, several sports organizations have experienced the worst ratings in history. MLB and NBA were hit the hardest, followed by NHL. ESPN viewer base fell by 62%. That's it.
Okay, so sorry, read it back from the top again.
Yeah. Still think Americans will tune in or pay for this trivial crap? Triple question marks. Keep making your political statements with BLM. Despite the COVID lockdown, several sports organizations have experienced, I'm sorry, my phone went screen closed. Excuse me. Despite the COVID lockdown, several sports organizations have experienced their worst ratings in history. MLB and NBA were hit the hardest, followed by NHL. ESPN viewer base fell by 62%.
Yeah, it's almost as if the trivial crap they're talking about is the sports, right?
Yeah.
Because they're saying, do you still think Americans will... It's almost as if the trivial crap they're talking about is the sports. Because they're saying, do you still think Americans will tune into this trivial crap? And then they showed you all the stuff that Americans are not tuning into anymore.
Well, they certainly supported that statement with keep making your political statements with BLM, as if BLM is the reason why ratings are down. But they start off the very next paragraph with, despite the COVID lockdown, several sports organizations have experienced their worst ratings in history. Like, well, you're just kind of refuting the point you're trying to make.
Yeah.
Despite the COVID lockdown.
Well, the COVID lockdown, meaning since everyone is at home, they should be doing nothing else but tuning in to watch this stuff?
I guess, but the problem is, at least in baseball's case, and certainly in basketball's case, people are popping up sick.
Exactly, yeah, and naturally when they get substitute players and the quality of play is going to go down, so that's part of it. And also, yeah, maybe to some degree it's because of the COVID lockdown, because a lot of people are just really worried right now. Not only the COVID lockdown, but the economic collapse. I mean, people are worried, are just freaked out in general, and maybe don't have time to devote, or don't have the mental energy to devote as much time to trivial pursuits in normal times like sports. I mean, I think that's a huge part of the reason. So it's like that post just assumes that because there's a correlation with BLM, that's the cause of it, which is absurd.
And not only that, what they're doing is conflating people kneeling with BLM.
Well, that part I don't get. So I don't get what BLM had anything to do with the rest of that post. It was as if the intro had nothing to do with the rest.
Well, this is one of those people that, so at this point, you want to blame the Black Lives Matter movement for everything, not an organization, right? You weren't tripping, you weren't calling Colin Kaepernick kneeling BLM when Colin Kaepernick was kneeling, right? But now, because there's this Black Lives Matter movement and it's accepted now by organizations, these protests, amongst athletes are accepted by, these sports organizations or what have you. She's trying to say that this is BLM. She's putting it all under this BLM umbrella. And that's kind of the problem that we have. I've said it to you before. Black Lives Matter as an organization and as a movement aren't the same thing.
Yeah.
I mean, has it ever been an official like an organization? I don't think it ever has really.
It has. It started out like they became an official organization almost immediately.
Wow. Okay.
Yeah, it's actually an organization, and in many cases, I don't support the actions or the way that the organization carries out its agenda. I certainly support the movement.
Which particular actions do you object to?
So at the very beginning, I understood the need to, protect the integrity of the organization. But at the very beginning, and I don't think the guy who was the face piece of the organization is so much. His name was like Lion something or other. You know what I'm referring to, right?
Right.
Flavius. So they were very adverse, almost militant in their adversity, their aversion to accepting help or partnerships with any other group that desired to help them. And that kind of raised some alarms for me.
Wait, sorry, you said they rejected partnerships of people that wanted to help?
Absolutely. Absolutely. And that just kind of raised some alarms for me, right? It was, and I get it. There's a need to preserve the integrity of your organization and make sure that it's not infiltrated. I get it. But that's what a vetting process is for. You understand what I'm saying? So for me, it just kind of raised some alarms, and it made me question, well, what are your true motivations? I question the motivations of anyone who doesn't want to unite or accept some sort of unified front, especially if you're in war. Like, what are your real motivations? And then, questions started to arise over where you're funding, where the money that you make, because, thing about Black Lives Matter, and I don't want to get on here and criticize the organization to a point where I'm, going at them because, I don't know. But what people question is, well, this is an organization, arguably one of the most powerful organizations that represent marginalized people to arise in the history of our country. I mean, in the past 6 months, less than 6 months, they were able to mobilize millions of people all over the globe.
It definitely speaks volumes, for sure.
Like, this is unprecedented. And so a fair question is, where, and it's the same question that everyone is asking, like, where's the money that you accrue going, and how is it helping the people that you claim to represent? And there's no transparency there. And I'm not saying there should be, but there's no answer to this question. Like, this is a question that you can't scratch. I'm sorry, go on.
No, I was just going to say, this is what you're mentioning is the same reasons the NRA is being taken down as we speak, because they lost track of their goals and just started to enrich themselves with the profits from their organization.
I want to be careful that, like, I mean, is there an accusation that that's what BLM is doing, or like who was doing the asking and who was not able to answer that question?
So several people have asked, Jadakiss, Styles P, several black celebrities, prominent black people came out and just asked. T.I. straight
asked
up.
Who? Asked who?
So the reason why they asked, and they asked publicly, like they just came out publicly and asked these questions, because when you scratch below the surface, you do not find the answer. Like, this isn't something that is public knowledge that you can find the answer to.
Right, but who did they, like, am I asking BLM right now, hey, BLM, where's your funding going to? Oh, man, These guys aren't answering me. I mean, is that what they did?
Well, yeah.
Okay,
because they scratched below the surface and didn't find the answer.
Well,
because they went to BLM's website, they went through they took what we believe, or at least, if Mike, for instance, if you were to go and try to find out where their funding is going to, you wouldn't find out. Not where their funding is going to, excuse me, how they're spending their money to help the black people, the people that they claim to represent.
I actually might be able to find out.
Well, that seems to be the question that no one seems to know the answer to.
Are you sure it's no one, or is it just Styles P and T.I.?
Well, as of right now, nobody knows the answer. Like, I'm not stupid, Mike. I'm not gonna get online and make these statements. And right now, that's literally the question. It has been the question. So when you say
but who besides T.I. and like Styles P was asking?
Well, I only use those as examples because those are the popular examples. People like, the same people who would be asking where Donald Trump's taxes are.
Well, I can tell you as someone on the left that, like, I mean, people ask those questions, but it's not like those folks always know where to look, right? It's like anyone can, like, yell.
Yeah, what are you saying now?
Well, I'm just saying, like, that sentiment is like, it's just, I don't know, it's just like easy to criticize and be like, man, I haven't heard where.
I think I lost volume.
Oh, you can't hear me?
What are you saying?
Can you hear me now? Can you hear me now? Can you hear me?
I don't think he can hear you.
I'll give you an example. A friend of mine raised $4,000 for Black Lives Matter. Can you hear me?
I can hear you, yes.
In California, a white upper middle class woman and another friend of mine who's a black person asked, he was like, hey, is that money going to pay the lawyer fees of the people who were arrested during the protest? And she didn't know, nor could she follow the money. She just didn't know.
Wait, who didn't know?
Doesn't know where the money is going for.
Who didn't
where
know?
the money is going to. Hold on.
That's the problem in general. You always get people who are grifters who exploit social justice. I mean, I remember when I was in college, I went to I had some friends who were organizing a fundraiser for I believe to build houses in Palestine that had been damaged, and it turned out that the person who was organizing the fundraiser just skimmed the pot and didn't actually give any of it to the cause he said it was going to. So that kind of stuff always goes on, and people need to be vigilant and watching out for it.
The question I had for you was who didn't know where the money went in California? Was it the woman who gave the money, or the people that
the woman who raised the money?
Who raised it? She didn't know where it was going to.
Right.
Okay, so I mean, it seems like the onus is on. It seems like she's the one who did.
Yeah, know. but Mike, what you're doing is you're minimalizing what I'm saying. This is a real conversation that just isn't happening between celebrities. Like, I'm reading a New York Times article that is specifically asking the question.
Okay.
That's what I'm trying to tell you. Like, I'm not just saying, oh, people.
Well, that's what I was asking for. I was asking for, like, of actual, like, who of actual substance was like asking these questions. The New York Times, that's a good answer.
Like I can read you the article. As Black Lives Matter donations surge, some want to know where the money goes. This is in June.
Okay.
The current wave of protests across the United States has spurred an enormous surge in donations to Black Lives Matter and other racial justice and civil rights organizations. But the boost in fundraising has also brought increased scrutiny, calls for greater transparency, and a flurry of conspiracy theories about the organization's spending. According to the New York Times, one recent Black Lives Matter online petition alone brought in $5 million in contributions, more than the financial records indicate the group spent in the fiscal year of 2019. Black Lives Matter's global network managing director, Kaylee Scales, told the Times the national outrage over the death of George Floyd in Minneapolis police custody has become a watershed moment for all Black-led organizing groups. Hold on. I'm sorry. In recent weeks, Black Lives Matter has received substantial commitments and contributions from major corporations and celebrities. Many stars have shared images of receipts from donations to various racial justice groups on social media, and Variety confirmed K-pop boy band Blob donated $1 million to BLM. With this much money suddenly flooding into charitable organizations, questions about how the funds are being spent are perhaps inevitable. One thing Black Lives Matter wants to make clear, despite what you may have seen in viral social media posts by right-wing activists, none of this money is going to the Democratic National Committee. BlackLivesMatter.com uses the platform ActBlue to process donations. ActBlue is popular among Democratic politicians and progressive nonprofits, and a similar service, WinRed, is increasingly utilized by Republicans, but neither platform has any control over how funds are allocated. That has not stopped critics from suggesting otherwise, though pundits like Ryan Fournier and Candace Owens have wrongly claimed ActBlue funnels donations intended for Black Lives Matter to Democratic candidates, with some going so far as to allege the organization is a Democratic money laundering scam. Anyway, that's getting off. Black Lives leaders have